Hello and welcome to your July 3rd daily briefing. Today we're going to discuss some interesting employment news and statistics and how that relates to the next stimulus check and the next stimulus package. And then later on in this video, I'm going to answer a few of your stimulus related questions that I've seen in other videos that I thought were worth answering. And then finally, I decided to answer some of your questions about me that I've seen in the comments as well, and I'll put that at the very end of this video. All right, so let's get into it. First, I want to take a minute to talk about this interesting employment news. Almost half of the US adult population is currently without a job. The current employment to population ratio is at 52.7%, meaning 47.2% of US adults are jobless right now. Compare this with pre-pandemic levels. Back in January, we were at 61.2%. I remember back when the $2,000 a month stimulus proposal first was proposed, it had a stipulation attached to it that said you would receive $2,000 a month until the employment to population ratio raised above 60%. And at that time, it was at around 58%. Now it's at 52.7%. It's gone down that far since that proposal was made. The best the employment to population ratio has ever been was back in the year 2000 when it hit a record high of 64.7%. In order to get back to that level, we would need to create 30 million jobs in the US. I personally think that this is a better statistic to keep an eye on than the percentage of unemployment. And that's because the unemployment percentage is not just the percentage of people who aren't working. In the most simple terms, it's the share of the labor force that is actively searching for jobs, the unemployment percentage is. And that's the most simple way to define it. However, it gets way more nuanced the more you look at it, based on things like temporary layoffs, student status, or how you define who is actively searching for work. Does looking at an employment ad count as searching for work, or do you need to actually go to an interview, or is it some other measure altogether? And how would that ever be tracked accurately? There's just a lot of issues with that statistic. The employment to population ratio is simply calculated by the number of people who aren't working divided by the US adult population. This gives a much more broad picture of the economy. The first thing that popped into my head reading this is nearly half of the US adults are earning $0 or next to $0. This seems to me like a glaring issue that we're facing and just feels like we're asking for trouble if literally half of people are earning next to no money. All of this leads me to believe that the necessity for aid to the jobless is just so necessary right now. Even many of those who are still working have less hours and are dealing with less pay and need help too. So we can't even really just count the people who are working as being totally fine because they may very well need help as well. I believe looking at the data, it's hard to come to the conclusion that relief isn't needed. I mean, I'm looking at this stuff every day and it just seems so obvious to me. A lot of what happens next will rely on the June jobs report. However, we just don't have that report quite yet. That'll come out later on today, hopefully. However, in a bit of good news on this topic, the huge payroll company ADP and Moody's Analytics have some estimates as to what we can expect on that jobs report. They saw private company payrolls increase in June by 2.36 million people, which lands it slightly below estimates of 2.5 million for the month of June. Nevertheless, according to economists, it appears that the economic recovery has started in June. I tend to have to agree with this. Just looking at my own business, I would say we really didn't even see the effects of the recovery in my business until probably the last 10 or so days of June. And really that was made most obvious in the last 5 or so days of June, where we saw a big jump in sales, which you can see me break down that and reflect on my video later in this week talking about my moving company's revenue for the week. It should be an interesting one. But it really feels like we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel here. However, even though we're finally seeing some relief, I have huge concerns about the increase in cases and more businesses closing. I believe if everything closes down again, or even if more partial close downs happen, the economic impact will be even worse than the first time. Some people had savings to keep them through the first closure, but far fewer will be able to handle another one financially. And that just means less money to spend for the individual buyer and less money to businesses, more businesses failing, more people losing jobs. It's just not a cycle that we want to be part of. I know we've been using the wait and see measure for legislator for a while now, but I kind of had a new idea as I was reading over this information this morning. Why not pass a relief bill that only goes in effect if some economic indicators are hit after a period of time? That way we're ready as soon as it happens. The issue I see is things are getting better and we're all hopeful, but there's this black cloud in the distance of potential more cases, potential business closures. What if by June 25th or whenever the next relief bill gets passed, things are slowly still getting better, but then in August they get worse again and our legislation just no longer makes sense? What I think would work is to have a portion of the relief bill that only goes into effect if we need it. Like if any period through the end of the year, the employment to population ratio goes below 50%, everyone gets sent a stimulus check. Maybe not that exactly, but you get the picture. Some kind of automatic system to just have something in place in case. That way debate and legislator doesn't need to be happening in the heat of the moment like it did last time. To finish off this video, I'm going to answer a few of your questions that I came across in the comments, and I will read the first one now. The first question is, I am moving soon. How do I change my address in case there is another stimulus check? So on this point, for security reasons, the IRS will only send the stimulus check to the address you had on file for your last taxes that you filed, unless you were able to input your address on the non-filers tool. Then you just inputted your address. Beyond this, what you should do if you do have a change of address is to fill out the IRS's change of address form. That is the Form 8822. You can find that by just Googling IRS Form 8822. And you should also, just for good measure, have your mail forwarded to the new address through the post office. You can do that online. I think it's $1 to do it online through USPS. All right, the next question. Can I get the EIDL grant without getting the loan? Yes, you can. I've received this question so many times, and I think I might have even addressed it before, but obviously I need to again. They should be two separate things, the grant and the loan. In most cases, from what I've seen, even recently, you'll receive the grant in your bank account without any communication about the grant from the SBA. However, what is odd is there's no way to formally decline the loan portion from everything that I can see. For me personally, I applied for the grant for my business and received it about a month later, and then a month after that I received the loan docs. Every few weeks they still send me a reminder to fill out the loan docs, but I don't want the loan because the Paycheck Protection loan was a much better fit for me and my business. However, it seems more recently that people are receiving the loan docs first before they receive the grant. And it's important to note that the loan is not the grant. You have to pay back the loan. Make sure the grant you won't have to accept, you'll just receive it. If you're having to accept anything, that's the loan. In order to receive the grant, you'll have to also have checked the box in the application that says you want to be considered for the grant up to $10,000. This is very important. And then lastly on this topic, I've seen many comments asking if you can be declined for the grant, and yes you can, but however the only reason that I've seen people get declined so far is for a low credit score. All right, let's touch on some of the more personal questions since I've been receiving a lot of them lately. So recently I mentioned this diet that I'm on, and it's caused a big flurry of questions about what exactly I'm doing. So I've been doing the carnivore diet for the last month. Carnivore as in like meat eater, not cardboard. Apparently I say that weird. It's very limited and tough to do. I just wanted to try it out. It's not for any reason besides just wanting to try out something different. I know it's not the best for the environment, but I try to get the meat from local shops and ethical farms and do it the best way possible. And plus I only did it for 1 month. Anyways, I keep getting asked why I am on this diet and why I'm trying to lose weight. Well, I'm not trying to lose weight. When I say a diet change, it was just a change in how I was eating for that month, but I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm trying to actually gain weight, and I think I gained like a couple pounds in the last month, but yeah, no, I don't have any weight to lose, so that definitely was not the goal. I just wanted to try something new. I've never been a big carb guy, just wanted to try it out. Also, I've been asked many times, what do I eat in a day on this diet? And it's going to sound a little bit chaotic. I mentioned this once, I think last week. So for breakfast, I eat 10 eggs with 4 pieces of bacon and some cheese on top. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I don't eat very many meals. So that's breakfast. Lunch, I'll eat 1 pound of ground beef cooked with some cheese on top, and then I'll have like 10 ounces of steak, kind of as like a supper, I guess. And that's pretty much about it for the day. I might have one more smaller steak or something like that at the end of the day. I know it sounds a bit chaotic, but that's what I did for the last month. Do I like it was another question that I've been asked many times, and yeah, I think I do. Like I said, I've never been a huge carb guy, so it worked out well for me. I've had stomach issues in the past. A few years ago, I got some stomach ulcers just from overworking myself, and that's kind of carried over for years, and I think that this was much easier on my stomach than eating like sugars or high carbs or anything like that. And I'm very proud to say that for the entire month, I did not trip up on the diet a single time. So I'm pretty happy about that. And then I had a donut the day after, and it surprisingly wasn't that great. But anyways, that's all for today. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.